Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Paul Jay in Baltimore. On Thursday night, Bernie Sanders gave a statement, a live stream on his website for about 25 minutes. A lot of people were wondering, is this the time he's going to come out and endorse Hillary Clinton? Certainly that's what her campaign was hoping for. But no, his message was the political revolution will continue. Here's some of what he said.
The political revolution must continue into the future. Real change never takes place from the top on down or in the living rooms of wealthy campaign contributors. It always occurs from the bottom on up when tens of millions of people say loudly and clearly, enough is enough, and they become engaged in the fight for justice. That's what the political revolution we helped start is all about. That's why the political revolution must continue. This campaign is also about defeating Donald Trump, the Republican candidate for president. After centuries of racism, sexism, and discrimination of all forms in our country, we do not need a major party candidate who makes bigotry the cornerstone of his campaign. We cannot have a president who insults Mexicans and Latinos, Muslims, women, and African Americans. We cannot have a president who, in the midst of so much income and wealth inequality, wants to give hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to the very, very rich. We cannot have a president who, despite all of the scientific evidence, believes that climate change is a hoax. The major political task that together we face in the next 5 months is to make certain that Donald Trump is defeated and defeated badly. But defeating Donald Trump cannot be our only goal. We must continue our grassroots effort to create the America that we know we can become. And we must take that energy into the Democratic National Convention on July 25th in Philadelphia, where we will have more than 1,900 delegates. I recently had the opportunity to meet with Secretary Clinton and discuss some of the very important issues facing our country and the Democratic Party. It is no secret that Secretary Clinton and I have strong disagreements on some very, very important issues. It is also true that our views are quite close on others. I look forward in the coming weeks to continued discussion between the two campaigns to make certain that your voices are heard and that the Democratic Party passes the most progressive platform in its history and that Democrats actually fight for that agenda.
Now joining me to deconstruct and analyze the significance and content of the statement. First of all, joining me from Farmington, Connecticut is Bill Curry. He's a columnist for Salon.com and was a counselor to the president in the Clinton White House. Joining me from Atlanta is Yvette Carnell. She's the founder of BreakingBrown.com and editor at YourBlackWorld.net. Thank you both for joining.
Thank you.
So Yvette, why don't you kick us off? There was not a single word in that speech about why Hillary Clinton might be a good president, that people should go out and elect her. I guess one can deduce, it doesn't take much to say if you're going to badly defeat Trump, that's what he's proposing. But what did you make of the fact that there wasn't even a hint of something positive about Clinton?
Oh, I think that was indicative of something very big. I think Bernie wants two things. He has something that he wants and something that he doesn't want. What he doesn't want is an issueless campaign. He doesn't want an issueless campaign. He wants the issues of working people, progressive politics to become a part of the Democratic platform. But what he's not saying, what he's not saying to us is I'm going to go out and I'm going to fight for Hillary. I think what you're going to hear Bernie say when he goes out and starts campaigning, he's going to be campaigning against Trump. He's not going to be campaigning as much for Hillary as against Trump. And I think that's what we heard. I think that was indicative of what we're going to see going forward in terms of how he plays this politically. He knows he doesn't want Trump, but he doesn't want an issueless campaign either. He doesn't want Hillary to be able to go out there and just say, don't vote for Trump. That's not good enough. Bernie knows that's not good enough for working people. And that's what he's pushing for now in terms of his political revolution.
Bill, what was your take?
I was struck, as you both were, that it not only was it not an endorsement, it wasn't even an acknowledgement of, for instance, her having consolidated the nomination, and there was simply no mention of her. And at the same time, there was a lot of talk about what else comes next. And one, I noticed that he talked about their strong disagreements over very, very important issues, and then their agreement on some other issues, which we were left to assume were of some importance.
Well, they agree on defeating Trump anyway.
And he also said, and we agree on some other issues, but he didn't. But we strongly disagree on very, very important issues, and then we also have some things we agree on. So that was a sort of a signal of just how far apart they are today on platform issues. Many people in the Clinton camp and many of her water carriers in the media have said that there's no reason for her to make concessions to Sanders. In a Rachel Maddow interview a month ago, she herself said, I didn't ask Obama for any concessions on the platform. Why should Bernie ask me for concessions? And of course, she and Obama didn't have any real differences, so there was no reason for her to ask for any concessions. There are real differences here. In any other country, these would be two different parties. And I think that what you heard from Bernie Sanders tonight was, one, as he has said from the beginning, that he intends to offer his support to Clinton. Every time he speaks in public now, he sort of warns his base that is where he's going. And it's almost as if he's softening the ground among his own supporters for a moment that not all of them will receive warmly. And at the same time that he's going to go into the convention and fight for a better platform. But most importantly, and the most time in that speech went to talking about the future, about running candidates for state and local offices, about contesting the right in all 50 states, about devising a democratic agenda for the future, about transforming the party and transforming the country. And so this was, I think, very much, it reminded me most of his earliest speeches. This isn't just a campaign, this is a movement. And in the next few months, he intends, I think, to try to pull off a delicate dance of endorsing her and making sure that, as he has said from the outset, that as many progressives as possible work and vote to defeat the fascist Trump, but at the same time to begin to build an independent progressive movement that can hold either party accountable when the election's over.
Right. Yvette, this objective of transforming the Democratic Party, making it into a party for working people and such, if one really pursues that, that leads to civil war. That isn't really something that one negotiates. A lot of times this difference between Sanders and what his movement stands for and what Hillary Clinton stands for is a difference of opinion, a difference of policy. I mean, certainly the Clinton campaign tries to suggest this, we all have the same objectives, just different ways to get there. But this isn't a difference just of ideas. This is a difference of interest. I mean, frankly, it's a difference of class. The Wall Street, the billionaires in Silicon Valley, and so on. The corporate-controlled Democratic Party have fundamentally different interests than the working people in the Democratic Party. What Sanders is suggesting, if it's pursued to the logical end, is a war in the Democratic Party that one can imagine, not perhaps this cycle, but in some cycle in the future, could even lead to a real split in that party.
I think that's exactly what he's proposing. Listen, he said, the thing that's so implying and influential in terms of what he's doing right now, he said change doesn't happen from the top, change happens from the bottom. So what Sanders is saying to me is that I'm going to be there, I'm going to still be in the game in terms of being that change agent and being that voice, but I want you to do this, I want you to go out here and try to do this. Because I mean, Sanders understands, there's one thing that's clear from watching him all this time, is that he understands that the game is rigged. And Sanders is not a neoliberal, he's not a corporate Democrat, he's more of a New Deal Democrat, and he's not of that class of people. That's not who he is. He doesn't go around with slush funds. He doesn't go around with the Clinton Global Initiative. He has amassed millions of dollars working in this international zone of with billionaires and millionaires around the world in intricate ways that we can't even trace money. He's not a part of that, and he understands. But because he is a part of the establishment, he sort of understands that. So what he's telling us is basically, yes, this is the game is rigged. I understand that, and this is how you change it. Go to the local level. Do this, do that. But I think there's something bigger going on that Sanders isn't even touching on in terms of the crisis of capitalism. And I think the fight for 15. That's all of these are all of these are things that we would like to see happen as progressives. But these are just like Band-Aids. The problem that we have is even a problem that Sanders hasn't touched on. But I think he's going far further than any other establishment politician in pushing those agenda items, and even trying to push Hillary Clinton, saying, listen, I know what you want to do, Hillary. What you want to do is just make this about Donald Trump and just go around and say, we can't have Donald Trump, and let that be enough. But what he's saying is that I don't want this to be an issueless campaign. The people who fought for me, the people who came out for me, they want things. They want a living wage. They want health care. They want to see. They don't want like this income inequality that's greater than any time in the modern age. They don't want to see that. So what he's saying is that it doesn't end here. And I think that's important, because what I've always said is that people have to have agency. And I think that's what Sanders has said. So what he's kind of doing to me is he's kind of freeing us up as Sanders supporters and saying, listen, you have agency. This isn't just about me. Don't just drop off and think the choice is just me or Hillary. No, you can do something. And I think that's important in terms of where we go from here.
Right. Bill, there's some people arguing that this is such a unique moment. The Sanders movement, has a scale that's unprecedented. I don't know if there's ever been anything quite like it. And it's taking place at a moment where the Republican Party is self-destructing, and so is the Trump candidacy, it seems, self-destructing. And some people are suggesting that in this kind of a moment, maybe Sanders should consider running outside the Democratic Party. I know that he's ruled it out, and it's kind of a moot debate in some ways, because it seems to me he's made it clear he's not going to do that. But what do you think of the proposition?
Well, I myself have always believed that the real fight is actually within the Democratic Party. That in the last 6 years, we've watched the Tea Party take over the House of Representatives. A rabid right-wing grassroots movement gained control of the House of Congress and is the loudest voice in the Senate. And now they've nominated their guy as the presidential nominee. And I have this argument almost every day of my life with my progressive friends, so many of whom see it otherwise. But for me, it's not a question of whether you're going to become some sort of little Vichy faction within the Democratic Party. The question is, where is the fight? And where is the other side most vulnerable? Are they most vulnerable to an attack in a general election from a third party, or are they most vulnerable to a revolution from within? To me, the Democratic Party is like a factory that's been abandoned by its owners in terms of the nominating process, the actual levers and gears by which we pick a candidate. This 74-year-old socialist from Vermont won 22 states against the most powerful political machine in the modern history of the party. We came so close in our very first try to knocking them off. And the lesson that maybe it's just because I'm a glass half full kind of guy, but the lesson I take is that it's time to take 20 or 30 of the most pro-Wall Street, of the most corporatist, of the worst Democrats, and let them know this is no longer enough in the only way that will ever matter to them, by challenging them in primaries. And second, I have to say that we have to see what the deal breakers were. listening to Sanders tonight, there were a couple of things that were left unclear. He talked about the goal of universal health care, but didn't mention single payer. He talked about the goal of universal higher education, but didn't talk about free tuition. He wasn't specifying. It seemed to me to be the speech of someone who with his campaign hadn't quite decided what are the fault lines here. What are the 4 or 5 things we're really gonna fight over? What is a deal breaker for progressives? And it's been a long time since the labor movement, since the environmental movement, since progressives in this country have known what their deal breaker is with the Democratic Party. And one of the values of this platform committee, I served in the 2004 platform committee. I've helped write Democratic platforms, both national and state level. And I'm as aware as anyone that no one reads them. We should insist on their importance. We should continue to fight to make them important. But the real process here is a process of defining the important differences that separate progressives, and with them, the vast majority of the American middle class and the elites of both political parties, but certainly including the Democratic Party. And so that process, what I heard tonight was someone who's beginning that process of figuring out where the concrete differences are, where the battle lines really need to be drawn. And I think is looking for the longer term, not just fighting within the party, not just taking on the most wayward Democrats, but building a progressive movement. And that may include third-party efforts as well. These strategies aren't as mutually exclusive as many people think.
Right.
But the fundamental question at the outset is whether you think this party can be transformed. It's kind of like it's where do you put that bet? If you lay siege to it, do you think you can really change it, reform it? Can you really think you can make it once again a tribune of working people? I did hear from Bernie Sanders tonight. It sounded to me there were times when he almost spoke as a party member. If you listen to those sentences closely, he never came out and endorsed Hillary, but there was a kind of what are we Democrats going to do about this party feel to a lot of it. And it made me think that he knows what direction he's moving in.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I'm not sure whether he believes the party can be reformed or if he believes the only way to get to a party that is a tribune of the working people is a civil war within the Democratic Party that I think leads to a split. But maybe that is how you get to a third party that has real scale in this country.
And that could be, I think that's a very good formulation of it. It's a very different question once you fight and lose. I think I think what we really learned was that Hillary Clinton had to have not just a 40, 50-point lead in the polls and all the donors and the entire party structure and the president and his cabinet, but most of the groups in Washington that purport to speak for progressives, labor and environmentalists, gay rights leaders, et cetera, all those Washington-based groups that were once grassroots movements, but who have traded the politics of pressure for the politics of access, which basically tends to work a lot better for the leaders than for the rank and file.
Yeah, you get to sip tea at the White House, but you don't walk out with much else but an
or you
empty
get a
teacup.
job.
You get a job. Yvette, what do you make of this pressure on Sanders that he should actually, that this can't be done within the Democratic Party, and he should seek an alternative way to do it?
Well, I don't make a lot of it, quite frankly. I think the people, who are saying that maybe they should have voted for Sanders. I understand that there have been, some electoral, shenanigans, for lack of a better word. But the point for me is that it looks like he lost. So if you lose, I don't think that's your role. He has operated within the Democratic establishment, while he has caucused with Democrats. That's who he is. And I don't think it's his job to blow up the Democratic Party. I think it's our job as voters, as citizens, as activists to blow up the Democratic Party. I think that's what we're here for. What Bernie Sanders has basically done is shown us who we are. I saw a poll that showed the majority of Democrats saw, socialism in terms of democratic socialism as a good thing, as a more positive thing than capitalism. The majority of Democrats are seeing that now, are seeing who we are and what we can do. And I remember when Obama ran and you had Joe the plumber out here, and he asked Obama about something and Obama mentioned redistribution. And that was like, nobody wanted to talk about it. It was like a third rail or something like that. So now we're at a point where we realize, no, this is Bernie Sanders normalized and mainstreamed democratic socialism for us and made us understand that no, we're not out here by ourselves. This is something that all of us have been thinking, all of us have been believing in, all of us know that there's something wrong, and Bernie Sanders fought for it and just showed us to ourselves. And so in terms of whether or not he should run for a third party, I don't think so. I think he should be the guy that he is. I think he should keep fighting for these issues, keep being the voice for these issues, and keep helping us fight for the issues that we care about. I just think that, we have our own agency now, and we don't need Bernie Sanders to do that. And I think in his speech tonight, the way he spoke of everything coming from the bottom up in terms of how change is made, I think he kind of freed us up to kind of do this for ourselves. So I'm not looking to Bernie Sanders to kind of lead me anywhere. I think he should remain in here and be a voice, but I don't think we should be looking to him. I think we should look to him as a reflection of who we are as an electorate, as a people.
Okay, if my guests are willing, I'm going to ask them very quickly, and we're not going to edit this. It's very fast. I want to do a part two. You guys okay to keep going a little bit?
Sure.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to run this like the next day. This is the night of Sanders' speech that we're shooting this, but we're going to do a part two, and we're going to run it like probably the day after that, because I want to talk a little bit about what he asked the Sanders movement to do, because it wasn't just about the fight at the convention, and it wasn't just about reforming the Democratic Party and so on, and it certainly wasn't about going out and campaigning for Hillary Clinton. What he really asked people to do was to actually run for Congress, run for state legislatures, get involved in the down ticket races. And so that's what part two is going to start off about. And so please join us for that. And thank you to my guests. And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.
Thank you.